Yesterday, Governor Cuomo rolled out a major jobs initiative, offering up $400 million in tax breaks to lure more than $4 billion in high-tech investment to upstate New York. The governor says that plan will bring more than 6,000 private sector jobs to the state. My next guest was certainly pleased at that announcement, but hopes the governor will take further steps to improve the business climate in New York. And he is, of course, Assembly Republican leader Brian Kolb. Brian, thanks for your time tonight.
Always a pleasure, Nick. Great to be with you.
Great. So let's just get started. The big news yesterday was this investment from these 5 major technology firms, and your hometown of Canandaigua in Ontario County is going to be receiving a pretty big piece of this pie.
Well, certainly it's great news for the state. It's a tremendous message to send out to the businesses that are here, but also hopefully to businesses that we want to attract here, that we're going to be very aggressive as a state in pursuing those opportunities. And I think this is a great, again, example of being proactive and taking control of our own destiny rather than waiting for Washington to do whatever they're doing or not doing. And certainly right here in Canandaigua, the facility is located in Canandaigua, but what we've always worked together in the greater Rochester region is on a bipartisan basis, because it's a regional effort in terms of the jobs, not only that are directly at the facility, but certainly the ripple effect where one job creates 3 other jobs in the private sector, whether it's grocery stores or accountants or lawyers or you name it. There's always a positive aspect to this, and very welcome news. But hopefully, as we go forward, there will be more and much more positive news to share as New York hopefully will focus in on keeping our current businesses growing, but also attracting new ones and new investment.
Right, and I think they refer to those as spin-off jobs when they create jobs that are kind of, in satellite around the main jobs that are being created this time around. How does this fit in right now with the ongoing regional economic development councils? And do you think that the regional economic development councils will now use this announcement in their job creation plans?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how it will affect the councils directly. I think it's, quite frankly, a separate initiative with the regional development economic councils that the governor is trying to focus on each region, trying to create its own strategic plan and what specific initiatives they want to focus on first. I think, to be fair, it's going to probably take a first full year for the economic development councils to do their work, make their recommendations, have the current administration then sort all that out with from an economic development perspective and selecting the key projects, and then see how those councils go on to work in terms of within the region, trying to have a one-stop shop, so to speak, in terms of, let's say, for instance, the Finger Lakes region, which encompasses 9 counties, to have an opportunity to look at other possibilities and provide more counsel and advice back to our economic development efforts statewide in terms of how we can be more proactive on a lot of fronts. So I think it can work in tandem, and hopefully there will be other announcements as time goes on. But certainly I think the economic development councils have to have a year to really get on its feet and see what the results are.
This past session was a pretty big one for businesses in New York. The governor touted the passage of the property tax cap, which is a measure that your conference has been pushing for a number of years now. There was reduced spending. There was an on-time budget. This was really touted as a business-friendly, pro-growth session for the legislature. But is the governor doing enough? I mean, what more can be done from the Cuomo administration standpoint, and what more can be done just in the state overall?
Well, I think, first of all, I think that this was a productive session, and of course there's more work to be done, just because you're not going to fix New York State's economy in 1 year. And I think that's what the governor's trying to communicate is, we can't rebuild Rome, so to speak, in one month or 1 week or 1 year. But certainly one of the things that we've been talking about is I think that since we have a property tax cap, we should have a state spending cap. if we had a state spending cap over the last 10 years, we would have curtailed state spending to the tune of about $30 billion. And that would certainly save a lot of taxpayers a lot of money that could be invested back into schools and infrastructure and jobs. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is our state agencies. I think that right now the state agencies need to be overhauled. I think they're an anti-business mindset where it takes too long to get permits approved. There's a duplicate of permits that have to be filled out if you're depending upon the agency you're dealing with. It's not customer friendly. And I still go back to when we sent an invoice out for the unemployment interest cost surcharge. The invoice was mailed to every business. I thought that was totally sending the wrong message to businesses, and I still continue to talk to businesses across the state that feel they're being harassed and fined and really unbusiness friendly to the existing businesses that are trying to operate here. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity, and I don't blame the Cuomo administration because a lot of this has been ingrained for years, if not maybe a decade. But I keep raising this point because I think that the governor now, with Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy, could be really proactive in terms of trying to remove the red tape and the obstacles and the harassment by agencies and threatening fines with businesses in this state. And I think that really would go a long way to helping the mood of small business, especially in the regulatory environment.
But to the point about the Cuomo administration, we spoke to State Republican Party Chairman Ed Cox yesterday, and he suggested that the governor isn't using his political capital, his tremendous popularity that we've seen over these last 8 or 9 months that he's been in office, to essentially go out on a limb and restructure state government to make it more business friendly. And he's not just talking about perhaps a tax cap or spending cuts here and there, but he's talking about a structural overhaul of the way state government runs. And I know that you just said that this isn't going to be done in a day. The governor said that not all things are going to change on day one. But should the governor go maybe further out on a limb to restructure state government in terms of, say, maybe trying to repeal the Triborough Amendment, which has been a business goal for a long time, or maybe further restrictions, further deregulation?
Well, again, I think that the governor certainly should look at everything, and I think it's important to listen to the state legislators like myself who travel all across the state as a legislative leader, because I continue to send letters of examples to the governor, and we'll continue to do that, to say, here, Governor, this is happening out in your state or in our state, and we need to fix these sort of things. And I think that, like for instance, I think we lost an opportunity on mandate relief this past session. Myself and members of the Assembly Republican Conference provided a whole host of ideas for mandate relief that lowers the actual costs for counties, villages, towns, and our state. And I think as much as, that's why I say if we're going to have a property tax cap, we should have a state spending cap to force change in state government. Because I think if we can get leaner, faster, more efficient, we can really save taxpayer money, free up money that can be invested in our schools and education and infrastructure. But it takes a concerted effort. It's about being more efficient, less costs for government that not only at the local level but at the state level, Nick. And I think there's still a lot more that can be done, that must be done, and that's why I'll continue to talk about and raise these issues, is just as a gentle nudge and reminder that we've still got a long ways to go. And our workers' compensation costs for businesses are still too high. Our energy costs are still too high. Certainly we have to have a program to get people back to work. We still have over 700,000 workers in the state that are out of a job. I think that unfortunately those areas that got hit by the flooding and Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee, we need to free up some of that economic development money to help those areas first to try to get back on their feet. So there's a lot of things that's on the plate there, but I think that should be our priority. Fixing the economy, doing it ourselves, forget about Washington. Focus on what we can control here in New York State, which is how we respond with state agencies, how we tax, how we spend. And certainly I think we can be very optimistic if we start really taking on the very difficult challenges that have been ingrained for quite some time.
Okay, Leader, we're almost out of time, but just wanted to ask you very quickly. Earlier this week, we had a member of your Republican conference in here, Assemblyman Peter Lopez, who said that he would call for a special session to deal with some of the storm-related issues, perhaps pass some legislation to help storm victims. Do you think that a special session of the legislature is needed to deal with some of this legislation that's been proposed by members of your conference and from other members of the Senate as well?
Well, if there's specific legislation that we need to work on that will help those particular areas, and of course I would be supportive of a special session. I know that in some of the things that we've talked about, the governor has the authority right now to get money from the state to these areas that have been distressed by the flooding. You know, I don't know specifically what Assemblyman Lopez was talking about that would need legislation specifically. Maybe it's the sales tax proposal that I don't, again, know for sure if that's by executive order or whether it takes legislative action. But certainly if there's specific, whether it's 3 things, 5 things that need to be done, that the legislature has to pass a law to make it happen, then certainly I would suggest that we would come back to deal with that or any other issue you know, on our plate that needs legislative action. But I'm just not clear right now what would be separate from an executive order and governor's administration action versus the legislature actually passing a bill that would do something or create us or move us to do something.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Assembly Minority Leader Brian Kolb, thanks for your time tonight.
Always a pleasure, Nick. Have a great night.